Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Metzia Ayin Daled. We are holding right on top, Amar Rava. So Rava tells us in Halacha, Hani Beit Lasa, you have three people, investors. The Yahavi Zuzul Echad, they hand their money to this fellow to be their agent, to purchase merchandise for profit. Lemizban Lehumidi, to purchase some sort of merchandise. And what did he do? V'zavan L'chad Minayu. This fellow goes ahead, buys the merchandise, but he has in mind that it's only for one of these investors, not for all three. Who does it belong to? Just Reuven, or Reuven, Shimon, and Levi as one? The answer is Zavan L'kulu. It's considered as though he purchased it for all, because they're all investors, they're all partners in this enterprise. V'lo yamar, but that's only true. Ella deloitzar v'chasim, that the shliach did not tie up. Tsar means tie up, v'chasim, and seal inish l'chudei, each individual's money separately. He didn't do that. It was not separate. It was given to him without that distinctness. Aval tsar v'chasim inish l'chudei. But if each one was given to him separately, tied up, sealed separately, so we don't look at it like a partnership, because each money is its own entity. So here we say, Laman de Zavan Zavan, for the person that he bought that merchandise for, right? Belongs to that person. Laman de Loi Zavan, Loi Zavan. And the other individuals who he did not buy for, okay, so then it's not theirs. Amar Rav Papi Mishmei de Rava. Haisi Tumta Kanya. So basically, you approach a merchant who sells wine, and you buy, a whole bulk, amount, and you don't really take delivery at this point. Later on, you come, pick it up one at a time. So the merchant would actually mark it down. He would make a mark on this barrel, indicating that it's yours. That's called situmta. Rashi says some sort of symbol that's placed on that container. Kanya. That constitutes acquisition. It's called a kinyan. L'may hilchasa. For what? Rab Chaviva Amar L'miknaya Mamash. It literally belongs to the customer now. It's called a kinyan. Because if that type of process is considered, in that location, that makom, that's considered a kinyan, that's the way they denote ownership, then the item is now transferred to this customer, belongs to him, and you can't back off from the deal. Rabbana Amri, no, not to that extent. It doesn't really belong to the customer. He didn't actually physically acquire it. Rather, l'kibuli alei mishepara, that if any of these parties wants to back off, he's liable to that cursed mishepara for transgressing his words and backing away from a verbal commitment. But technically, it's not really his. If he's willing to accept mishepara, then he can drop the deal. So it's considered somewhat of a commitment, but not to the extent that it's really a kinyan. And that's the conclusion. It only makes him liable to mishepara. But, says the Gemara, but if in this place, the minak, the accepted custom is that when the grocer, when the chanvani, when the dealer marks his barrels in this fashion, it is considered a transfer of ownership. Then in fact we follow that system, kani, and makes it yours. That's the way it works. Kinyanim is about gemiras das. It's about, a definite commitment. This is a definite commitment in this locale. That's the way they express commitment. So it's called a kinyan. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says that even if it's not yet the the time to sell this merchandise. It's not, the market hasn't yet opened up on this. There's no set prices, but a certain producer, a farmer, or we're going to see a wine producer or a dish maker, right? He has merchandise to sell, even if it's still, early in the season, when the actual prices have not yet been established and pegged. But if he has it, fine. Then you can buy, you can invest with him, pay him based on this low rate, and receive delivery whenever. Because the fact is, if he has it on hand, if it's accessible, then he's selling it to you. It's a proper trade. It's considered a transaction. You purchase that item, but that's only provided he has it in stock. Now, how developed, how finished does the product have to be considered in stock, to be considered tangible and within hand's reach, to be considered a candidate for this transaction? Amar Rav Mechusar, it doesn't have to be fully complete, fully developed. Even if it's still missing 2 steps in the process to get it fully developed, that's close enough to home to be considered the yeshloi, as though he has it in stock and it's something which is sellable. Mechusar shtayim pais, you can make this psika, you can make this contract. But shalish, if it's 3 steps removed from the finish line, any paisek, you can't do that. That's not called yeshla. He doesn't really have anything for you. He has raw material. That's not enough to be considered a sale on that final product. Shmuel Amar, well, steps doesn't really matter. It all depends who has to do those steps. Is it something which is bidei adam? You need a personal involvement, or is it by way of nature? Bidei shamayim. Shmuel Amar bidei adam. If it's something that he personally will do, afilu meya, even if he still needs to do 100 steps, paisek, he can do this contract, but if it needs help from shamayim, the sun, the heat, all that, then it's unpredictable. Who says it's going to happen? So it's not really biyada, it's not within hand's reach. Afilu achas, even if it's just missing 1 step to get it to the finish line, any paisek, you can't do this. None. We have a Mishnah by us, right? Paisek imal agadish. So you can make this deal on a gadish. Gadish denotes stalks of grain, which have yet to go through many steps to get them to the finish line. 4 steps in total. What are they? Firstly, you got to spread it out in the sun to dry lemevash. Then it needs to dry. Number 3, ulameidash. You got to crush them, thresh them, ulamidra, and then throw them out on the wind and have the wind winnow it, right? So you're missing 4 steps. How can you make a deal on such an unfinished product? Okay, we're speaking that it's already sitting out in the sun and dried up. So since it's only missing 2 steps, that's okay. But according to Shmuel, according to Shmuel dam b'dei shamayim. If it's something which happens b'dei shamayim, afilu achas in a paisek, even if it's missing 1 step, you can't do this. What about winnowing, which needs the wind? B'dei shamayim. The answer is efsha b'nachvasa. You can do it with fans. You can do it manually. So ultimately, he can get it to the finish line by himself. Next case. He's selling this ovet, like this big vat full of grapes. And he's selling it as wine, right? He's buying the wine which will be produced after many, many more steps. Hold it, we're missing 4 steps. It's too far gone. He needs to warm up in this vat. And be brought into the wine press. And be crushed. And then draw out the wine from the wine pit. 4 steps. How could you sell that unfinished product? As Rabbi Chia says regarding the olives coming up soon, that we change the lashon. Instead of mountain, we say kaimer, which means that they're already at that warming stage. So that stage has been taken care of. Here's well with the grapes. They've already warmed up and heated up, and you don't need that stage anymore. Well, you're still missing 3 steps, which is still too far gone. The answer is Ba'asr Dahud Zavan. We're speaking about a place where the customer, who the nugget, he's the one that draws the wine from the pit. So you skip the first stage, That's been done, and the last stage is not something which the seller has to do. So all it is 2 stages, and that's okay. And regarding this, a collection of olives, right? What about the 4 steps that it needs? Michmar needs to heat up, be brought into the oil press, meidash to be crushed, lemingad to be drawn out of the press. 4 steps. They've already been warmed up. What about the 3 steps that are needed? Answer is the 4th step is the customer's responsibility. The customer is the one that draws it out of the pit. So we have these globs of mud, which the yaitzer, the pot maker, will form into pots. Once again, it's very premature. It's totally unfinished. Amai, how could you sell this? The mud needs to be rolled and shaped, right? It has to be dried up, right? The cement has to dry. You got to take it into the oven, the furnace, the misraf, in order for it to bake into hard clay, and then you have to remove it from the furnace. It's a whole process. How could you sell this? Going to Melafaf of Yabish. We're speaking that the first 2 steps have been done. It's been rolled, it's been shaped and dried. For you got last, we still have 3, which is still too far gone. Ba'asr, we're speaking about a place that would do the oven, the fellow who buys it, the customer, the mappa, he's the one that picks it out of the oven. So all you have left is 2 malachis, which is close enough to home. And finally you have the sid, lime, sid shak'enu bekivshon. Once it's been, the ingredients have been delivered into the oven, you can already sell your final product. You have 3 steps that are missing. You have to burn it, and then take it out of the furnace, umedek, and crush it into fine powder. So 3 steps that are still needed. We're speaking about a place where the customer is the one that crushes it. So you're only missing 2 steps, and that's okay. But according to Shmuel, the Amar b'dei Adam, if it's something that is done manually, then it doesn't matter how many steps are missing. You can even do this deal when it still needs 100 steps. So why does the Mishnah specify that it had to be delivered into the furnace? Right? Delivering to the furnace is something that's b'dei Adam, it's done manually. So even prior to that step, you can already deal with it and sell it. The answer is the Mishnah just means when the ingredients are ready, are prepared and ready for the furnace, that's enough. So beitzim are these globs of mud, of clay. So you can only do this purchase on those future, products, on the dishes and the pots. You can only do that once the craftsmen form these globs of mud, which are going to be, prepared and shaped into pots. Divrei Rab Meir. Omar Rabbi Yesi. When is this true? When do we actually have to see the clay? Just, raw sand is not enough. Dry sand is not enough. Buffer leaven when it's white sand, which is a uncommon variety, and as the Mefarshim Rishonim explain, unless the customer actually sees it already en route, in process, in a mud form, he's not really, assured that he has the product in the making. So it has to be in its mud form. Aval b'afar shachaba, when it's black afar, which is a very commonly found commodity, such as the afar that's found throughout these towns, Kfar Chananya v'chavrisea, Kfar Chananya and the surrounding villages, Kfar Shichin v'chavrisea. So there, paiskin, we can contract and we could deal. So even if this fellow doesn't even have it in stock, but his next door neighbor has it, it's very commonly found material, and therefore you can go ahead and contract on it, even at this point where it's not yet produced and not yet tangible. So you can basically buy it because the fellow can commit, because he knows it's accessible, he can source it any way he wants. Says the Gemara, Meimar Yoiv Zuzi Michi Ma'aili Afra. So a Meimar would actually give his down payment for these kalim as soon as the producer, the craftsman, would amass the offer. He would take delivery of the offer, which was the raw material for the product. Says the Gemara, what's going on? Come on, whose shita is he following? We had our mayor, who says you have to actually have it in glob, in mud form, where you start seeing the process. Whereas Rabbi says the fellow doesn't even have to have it in stock because it's something so common that can be found anywhere, right? So it's considered accessible and sellable, right? So this middle point of having it in stock, who's it going like? Come on, Ikra Meha Amashi Yosu. Contra Meha, you have to actually see it in the making. It's not just enough to have dry sand. Ikra B'yesi, Contra B'yesi, even that's not necessary. So he doesn't have it. His next door, he can source it anywhere. Right? So, again, the Mishnah spoke about sort of two categories. Things which are fully accessible and purchasable, then, if the market has already been established, no problem there. You can buy it because you can source it anywhere. An item which has not yet been incorporated into the market, it's still way pre-season, so then only if the fellow has it in stock. So you're actually buying that thing, right? But when it comes to these dishes, right, which are made from clay and all that, so Rabbi says, it's always accessible. It's always around, 24/7. So therefore, he doesn't have to have it in stock. You can buy it from him, and he'll source it anywhere. So it's considered purchasable material. Okay? So the answer is that we're going to Rabbi Yehuda, but Asr da Meimar, and in Ameimar's town, Oshik Afra. This type of sand, this type of clay was expensive and uncommon. So there, we needed to actually he had to actually see that the fellow had the sand in stock. If the craftsman took delivery of the offer, they purchased the raw material. So now, the craftsman and the customer are both pretty secure in their deal. They know, look, it's happening, and therefore he felt confident. He gave him the money, and Rashi says this sort of locked the deal. They can no longer go back on it. Otherwise, they're exposing themselves to Misha Para. But if the raw material had not yet been acquired, so there's no assurance. He's not confident, and in fact, the fellow will follow through on the deal. Who says he'll find the material, and therefore, it's not considered a smart move, and therefore he wouldn't invest the money at that point. So simply like a business type of consideration, because of the unique conditions prevalent in that town. Now, just as we speak about the accessibility to this offer, to these sands, right? Same thing with zevel, animal waste. That's an all year round commodity. You don't have to wait for any specific season. And the Tanakama says that anytime throughout the year you can be paisik, you can contract on this animal waste. And Rabbi says, actually, no. Zevel is just like anything else. You can only do so if your seller has it in stock. And Chachamim come back and say, no. It doesn't matter whether he has it in stock or not. Right? We have a Chachamim Atir back in the Mishnah of Ayin Beis Yom Beis. Right? The Tanakama says Zevel is an all-year-round commodity. Rabbi says he has to have it in stock in order to commit it to you and sell it to you. Chachamim say, no, it's mutter regardless. Now, Chachamim seem to be just repeating the Tanakama. Right? Chachamim Hayo Tanakama, who say, well, you can buy it anytime you want. Amar Rava, there's a slight difference. You might say Shaman throughout the winter. That's the difference between Tanakama, who says you can do this anytime throughout the year. Zevel is considered something accessible, obtainable, and you can deal with it anytime. Whereas Chachamim say, yeah, but not during the winter time when when there might be a shortage throughout the winter time, because he says like this, that Rashi explains that in the summertime the zevel had already been fully processed. It seems like they used to throw the zevel out into the street, and the traffic would step on it, and that would sort of help it get to its finished form, and was ready for the once the winter was over, was ready to go for the summer. So in the summertime, everybody had fully stocked with zevel. But throughout the winter, it was still sort of mid-process, and therefore it isn't considered fully accessible and fully obtainable, because the supply wasn't as plentiful as the summertime. Therefore, Chacham say during the wintertime, you have to work with different rules, that only the fellow who actually has it in stock can commit it to you, but otherwise not. Fine. And the Mishnah concluded, Upoisik imay kishar hagavoya. Okay, so we're speaking again about contracting for future delivery. I pay you today, I take delivery later. And we discussed that even if it would go up in price, you're entitled to take delivery of the same material. As we explained, it's considered a purchase. It's not ribbis. What if it goes down in price, which the Mishnah calls shar hagavoya, the high rate. High rate over here means you get more for your money. So it dropped in price. So can the customer insist that the seller give him that lower price, give him more for his money? So Tanakama says, unless you stipulate, right? The only way to do it is to make it tonight, right? And Rabbi Yehuda says, well, no, actually, it's understood, it's assumed. The customer can just tell the merchant, look, it's up to you. You want to give me at the lower rate? Fine. Otherwise, we'll just scrap the whole deal. Okay? So again, Tanakama says you have to stipulate. And Rabbi Yehuda says it's a built-in privilege. Says the Gemara, how gavar, there was a fellow, the Yoiv Zuzi Linadunya, the Bechamor. She's a son-in-law, and he made a payment on behalf of his father-in-law for Nadunya, for a wedding, jewelry for one of the daughters in the family. So basically the father-in-law sent him as an agent to acquire these materials. So he paid ahead of time, right? He paid the jewelers ahead of time to have it ready this and this date. Turns out that the price of jewelry dropped, gold dropped. L'soif, turns out Zel Nadunya, the material dropped in price. Now he wants a better deal. Also, he comes to Rav Papa. Amarle, he says, well, I have a question for you. Did you stipulate or not? If initially you had stipulated that you're going to take it at the lowest rate possible, if it drops in price, your price drops as well, then you're entitled. Shachal kahashti, you can take it based on today's rate. But otherwise, that's it. You can't force him to drop his price. Shachal kimi kari, take based on the initial price, the higher price. Amarle Rabbanan asked Rav Papa, why? Amarle Rabbanan Rav Papa vilei pasak. Shachal kimi kara. If he hadn't stipulated, so he's compelled to purchase based on the initial higher price. At most, he just paid for it, right? We know that payment is not the final step of a deal. You have to do a meshicha, a physical acquisition. Otherwise, you can change your mind. Amar Luz, he says, you're right. Technically, he could cancel a deal. But then he's opening himself up to the Mishapara curse, right? Ano Nami. When I said that he can't, I meant to say L'kabula Mishapara. That, if he wants to risk a Mishapara, but that's not what, that's all I meant to say. Right? If initially he stipulated Moicher Kahadabe. So now if the seller refuses to go along with that stipulation, so he's reneging on the deal, right? He's canceling the deal, and the seller, is liable to Mishapara. But on the other hand, such as now a case where it seems like he did not stipulate this ahead of time, so now when the customer insists on changing the terms of the deal, he wants to get at the lower price, he's changing it, and he will be makabel alei lekeach mishapara. The customer will be open to the mishapara. So that was Rav Papa's conclusion. You can't just renege on this deal. You made a deal, you got to stick to it. Amar le Ravina, he has the kasha le Rav Papa. I have a kasha. In our Mishnah, we have the Tanakama, right? We have the Rabbanan who say you have to stipulate, otherwise you're not entitled when there's a drop on price, to drop your price as well. And Rabbi Yehuda says it's understood, it's assumed. Every such type of deal, I mean, you're doing this ahead of time. You never know, it might go up, might go down. So the understanding is that, you want the best of both worlds, right? If it goes up, you want to stick to the current price. But if it goes down, right, he's expecting a drop in price as well, right? That was the machlekes. And Rav Papa seemed to go along with the Tanakama, right? You have to stipulate it, otherwise it's not a built-in, system. You may recall we had a discussion back in Perek HaZahav, back on DAF Mem Dalet. We had a machlekes between the Rabbanan, who say that after just payment, right before the Mashiach, the physical acquisition of the item, if you just pay, money alone does not seal the deal. I mean, you're liable to Mishapara if you backtrack, but technically, Minat Torah, there's no conclusion to that deal. There was no actual acquisition. And both parties, the seller or the buyer, can technically just cancel the deal. Right? At the risk of a Mishapara, but ultimately they can cancel the deal. Reb Shimon says no, only the buyer can change his mind. This was a whole discussion back in, only the seller, the moicher, can change his mind. This is a discussion and it's explained at great length back in Daf Mem Dalet. But that's the sum total of the machlekes. Because he holds that mois is koines. Money does acquire the item. Nevertheless, Chachamim, out of concern for the well-being of the financial well-being of the customer, so that the seller is motivated to protect the material, etc. So they gave him the ability to be chayzer, to change his mind, change the terms of the deal as necessary. And of course he gets a mishapara if he does so. Right? But the buyer never has the ability to change the terms of the deal. Deal is sealed. Okay, so bottom line, if one issued payment for an item, but did not yet do Mashiach, according to the Shitas Rabbanan, Mois alone does not make a kinyan. Both parties can technically change their minds with a Mishapara consequence. Reb Shimon says, Mois are koines, money does seal a deal, Minat Torah, and only by the moicher is there that clause, that the ability to do chazara, to change his mind with the mishapara consequence. But the lekeach doesn't have that ability. Okay, how does that pertain to us? So, Ravini asked Rav Papa, you seem to be going with the shita of the Tanakama, the Chachamim in our Mishnah, that doesn't allow any reneging. If there's a downturn in the value and the price, you can't just insist on dropping your price as well. Right? The customer has no ability to insist. He doesn't have the right to insist that the seller drops the price. Now, who says that our shita, our opinion, our Tanakama, is following the shita of the Rabbanan over there in Perek HaZahav? When we mind the Rabbanan, the Pligalid Reb Shimon, who disagree with Reb Shimon, what do they say? The Amri Mois Loikan. That simply paying, that's not a real kinyan. It's not a complete acquisition. Right? That's their shita. And nevertheless, they insist in our Mishnah, despite the fact that the deal was not sealed, it was not completed yet, still they insist that if you invested today on a future delivery, you cannot insist on a lower price if in fact the price drops later. You can't do that. Afilach, and still ipasak kishara gavoya, if he stipulated that he will be entitled to a drop in price, then shachal kedahashta, then he's entitled to the current lower price. Ilay pasuk, but otherwise he did not stipulate. Shachal demikara, he gets based on the initial price, the higher price. So who says our Tanakama, who requires stipulation? It corresponds to the Shita of the Chachamim over there in Perikaz that Mois simply paying for the item is not considered a full acquisition, and still we insist that you can't just back out. You can't just insist on a lower price. Dilma, maybe Reb Shimon, maybe our Tanakama over here, who says you need stipulation, otherwise you can't just back out. Maybe that's Reb Shimon's shita, and that's why. Because he says the Amar Mois Koines, he says that payment really makes a kinyan. Right? So then we can fully understand why. You can't just wiggle out of the deal. I mean, you paid, it's done. So if you stipulated at time of payment that you are going to be getting best rate, price drops, you're getting the best rate, shachal kehashta, then you're entitled to get based on the current lower rate. Otherwise, if you didn't stipulate, shachal demikar, you get based on the initial rate, the higher rate. Because after all, you paid for it, and money is a done deal. But perhaps the Shitas Rabbanan over there in Perikaz who say that money does not constitute kinyan. Right? And in fact, they hold that even once money is paid, once the payment is issued, both the seller and the buyer can change their mind, right? I mean, they're susceptible to mishapara, but technically they can change their mind. So, according to them, when it comes to our discussion, where you paid in advance, everybody knows, I mean, the market fluctuates, and it's understood that, perhaps it's understood that this is what they had in mind. So whether he said it out or not, it's understood that he wants the best deal possible, and he's expecting a price drop, if in fact the price drops, right? Perhaps bein pasuk, bein loy pasuk, whether he stipulated or not, shachal kiyashti is entitled to the current lower rate. Why? The daita de inish, we assume when a customer pays in advance, that's what he has in mind. Atara zila, he wants the lowest rate. So why you, Rapapa, why are you insisting that you need stipulation? Otherwise, he has no right to the lower rate. Maybe the Tanakama now Mishnah, which says that, is Reb Shimon's shita. So once you've gotten to the point that you paid, that's already a kinyan, it's too far gone. You can't just wiggle out. But according to the Rabbanan, who hold that mois are not koines, there wasn't really an official kinyan. So perhaps, especially in our case where he's paying in advance, I mean, it's understood that he's expecting fluctuations and he'd like the best deal possible. Amar Leisi, he responded, this is unrelated to the whole discussion of Reb Shimon and the Rabbanim. They're speaking about a standard purchase. Here it's so different. He paid ahead of time in advance, knowing full and well. I mean, it's predictable that things can fluctuate and he's expecting the best deal. Price drops, I pay less. And even Reb Shimon would agree that in this case, even the lekeach, the customer, has full right to backtrack, obviously, with a mishapara consequence, right? But yeah, the moich and lekeach both have the ability to pull the plug. So in our case, in our situation, Reb Shimon and the Rabban should both be on the same track. Amar lei. Amor de Amar Rabbi Shimon b'chad tara. Rabbi Shimon only says his thing, his idea that lekeach cannot backtrack when it's chad tara. It's just one rate, meaning basically it's a way of saying he wakes up one day and says, I want to change my mind. I want to, a regular sale, you can't change your mind. Betray tari, but when you have two rates, it's a way of describing our situation. Basically, you're paying ahead of time, sort of expecting perhaps some sort of fluctuation. It's predictable that the price will change, the price will drop. Mi Omar, would Reb Shimon apply his stringency to our case? No. In our situation, we're just paying ahead of time. Everybody, Reb Shimon and Rabban, will both should be on the same track regarding the ability of the lekeach as well. The customer as well has the ability to backtrack. Right? So you can't attribute the stringency of our Mishnah, right? The Shita in our Mishnah, which says you have to stipulate, otherwise you can't expect a lower price. You can't attribute that to Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon and Rabban are both on the same page when it comes to our Mishnah, our case. Right? So if in our Mishnah we see that unless you stipulate you're liable to Mishapara, that would apply to any opinion, to Reb Shimon, to the Rabbanan, right? But Trey Tarami Amar, does then Reb Shimon apply his stringency, his limitation, his not allowing the lekeach to change his mind? When it's Trey Tari, when it's a fluctuating rate, such as in our case, where you're buying ahead of time, buying in the blind, because otherwise, if you don't agree with me that in some cases even Reb Shimon holds that technically a lekeach can pull the plug. Misha para b'lekeach, Reb Shimon. Last slide, you mean to say at the contrary, Reb Shimon, there's never a situation where a lekeach cancels a deal and exposes himself to Misha para. Really? You think that's true? Vatani, we have a brayso. In all situations, that's the halacha. You can change. Chacham say, well, it's dangerous, Misha para, right? Now, why does the brayso use this language? In any case, in any rate, apparently we're trying to cover something. Apparently the brayso is covering both parties. Sometimes a seller is liable to mishapara because he cancels. Sometimes a buyer as well. And this is Reb Shimon speaking. This is the brayso of Reb Shimon. Hold it. According to Reb Shimon, he can never cancel a deal. Once he pays, it's over. Oh, apparently in some situations, even Reb Shimon agrees that a buyer has the ability. He's open to mishapara, but he has the ability to cancel. Reb Shimon. Apparently Reb Shimon's limitation, when he blocks out the buyer from canceling, that's only b'chad tara when it's the same rate, but trei tari when it's a double rate, like in our case, le'amar, he doesn't apply his limitation. So basically, in our situation, there's no Reb Shimon, there's no Rabban, they're all on the same page. Even the lekeach would theoretically have the ability to cancel if the price drops later on. So why didn't the Tanakama and our Mishnah say you can't do so unless you stipulate? You're going to expose yourself to mishapara unless you condition it in advance. Apparently, that's a universal halacha, not given to any machlekes between Shimon and Rabbanan. Basically, everybody, whether Reb Shimon or the Rabbanan, would hold that unless you stipulate, you're opening yourself to mishapara. One second. In this story with the son-in-law buying for his father-in-law, we thought he was just an agent. I mean, the father-in-law just asked him to be a shliach to buy, this jewelry, right? And now what happened? Why are you blaming the shliach? You're saying, well, if he drops the deal, he gets mishapara. I mean, he's not responsible. The father-in-law was the one who dropped the deal. Why are you blaming the shliach? And on the other hand, the father-in-law is not either guilty of mishapara, because as Rashi says, he can blame it on the shliach. You should have foreseen this. You should have stipulated in advance that if the price drops, you want a discount. So both should be absolved. Why you? He says, no, we're not speaking about an innocent shliach. This son-in-law was a dealer by his own right. He was a middleman. Amalei B'Tagra, he was a merchant. He was a dealer. The Zavan, he would buy from jewelers, Umazbin, and sell to his father-in-law. And he made a commission on the deal. So yeah, the son-in-law here is a player, is very much a player. And if in fact he even if the father-in-law was the one who dropped the deal. But he's still responsible. The son-in-law is still responsible for what he committed to his supplier. Okay, bottom line, we have a Mishnah that you can contract in advance for material to be delivered later. And the Chiddush is, even if it's still way pre-season, the product isn't yet produced, but if it's on its way and close enough, that allows for a purchase. We had a whole sugya. How many steps is it missing? We have Rav, we have Shmuel, we went through all different cases. Then we concluded with the halacha that if the price drops, right, the new halacha, right, you buy in advance and the price drops, are you entitled to a discount? Tanakama says no, unless you stipulate it. He just says it's understood. And we have the story where Rav Papa Paskin, like the Tanakama, you must stipulate in advance to get that lower rate. Says the Mishnah, Malva Adam es Arisav. So a fellow has arisim, sharecroppers. Basically, they're going to tend to my land and get a commission. Now, let's say they need the supplies. I can supply them with chitin, with wheat kernels for seeding, right? I lend them a bag of chitin, bechitin to be repaid a bag of chitin, lezera. So using it to plant in my field. And the chiddush is, we're not concerned about the chitim rising in price at that time of repayment, because if they're investing into the field, then it's part of the sharecropping arrangement. And any losses that they might experience by a hike in wheat prices later on, so it's part of the deal. They're absorbing that loss into their arrangement, so to speak. It's not a loan. I'm providing them a field with seeds. This is what you do, this is what you work for, and we have that percentage that you get, right? And they have to repay me this sack of wheat as part of the deal. But that only works if you're actually investing into the field. But if you're just giving it to them for their personal consumption, that doesn't work, because then it's a separate thing. They're borrowing a bag of wheat for themselves and repaying me a bag of wheat, which might be worth more later on. That's a problem. It's called sa'ah b'sa'ah, right? Shoya Rav Gamliel Malva es Arisav, because Rav Gamliel was machmer. He was stringent upon himself when he would loan his arisim, chitin bechitin, right? Chitin for chitin, lezera, for seeding in the field. So let's say it was expensive today, then it dropped later on. B'yoker v'huzlo, later on it dropped in price. Oy b'zoil, it was cheap now, v'hukro, and it hiked later on. He would always take the loss. Noitil mehen keshara zoil. He would take the lower rate. Not because the halacha indicates that he meant to do so. He was machar on himself to avoid any impression of impropriety. He would always absorb the loss. Tana Rabbanan, back to the halacha in the Mishnah. Malva adam es arisav chitim mechitim lazari. You can loan them chitim and have them repay you chitim if the point is to plant it in the field. But when is that true? Shelo yorad, before the aris started working. Right? Aval yorad, but once he began working, also you can't do this exchange. So that's the brisa. Before it's okay, but once he starts, it's too late. Why? We'll see in a minute. Now, Ma'ishna Tana Didan, if we take a look and compare the brisa to our Mishnah, in our Mishnah, Tana Didan, we don't find this distinction before and after. The late Kamaflik makes no distinction between Yarad, whether you started, and Lo Yarad, you didn't start. If the loan is intended for seeding, that's okay, right? U'Ma'ishna Tana Bro, whereas the second brisa makes that distinction before and after. To Kamaflik, ben Yarad, ben Lo Yarad, what's the difference? Amar Rava, Ravidi Asbr, Ravidi explained it to me. Ba'ashra the Tandidan, it's all about the prevalent practice in that locale. Where our Tana lived, our Mishnah was reflective of the local custom, which was like this. Arisa Yav Bizra. The Aris, the worker, is meant to be providing that material. He's meant to supply the seeds. So now, Ben Lo Yarad, whether he began his job or not, Kama de Lo Yav Bizra, unless he provides those seeds, he's defaulting on his agreement, right? Matzi misalakle. So the landowner could just fire him. He's not fulfilling the terms of the deal. So now, when he turns around and decides to lend him those seeds, so now that you give him the seeds, it's like starting the deal anew. He failed the terms of the agreement. Done. It's over with. Now we start fresh. A fresh slate. New agreement. Here are some seeds, right? And now when he submits himself to the job, he's sort of submitting himself to a lesser deal. He knows he's going to earn less. Right? He's going to basically be responsible for these kernels, even if they rise in price. So he's sort of taking a cut, a salary cut. That's okay. It's not a separate loan, it's a salary cut within the Arisis arrangement. But Ba'asra the Tana Bara, whereas the location where the Brisa, the Tana of the Brisa lived, Mari Arya Bizra, it was understood that the landowner provides the seeds. So you can't just fire him for not showing up with seeds, right? So Ilo Yarad, if it's still pre-job, if he hadn't yet begun his work, the Matzi Misal Klei, so at this early point you can still fire him. So now when he loans him these seeds, and the worker submits himself to the job, since he hadn't yet begun, you can retool and revamp the terms of the agreement. And he allows himself this salary cut, as we explained before. So there's no ribis issue. A yard, once he begins his job, at that point it's too late. You can no longer fire him. Right? The agreement has been activated. So now when you lend him the wheat on account of receiving the same amount back, and it might be more expensive when he repays it, so it's a loan. It's sabasa and it's us. Tana Rabbana, we have a brayso. Reuben can tell Shimon halveini kur chitin. Could you loan me a kur of chitin? V'kaitit leidamim, and they base it on the current market rate. Okay, £5 per dollar. So you lend me £10. I owe you $2. So this way, whether wheat goes up or goes down, I owe you the same amount, $2, right? That's called v'kaitis leidamim. Now, huzlu, if the price of wheat drops, the fellow will respond with 10 pounds of wheat. If it rises in price, he will give you the value at the time, the value at the time of the loan, which is $2. Asks the Gemara, hold it. Why is it only a one-way deal? I mean, if it's pegged on the market value, he owes him $2. So why, if it drops in price, right? Is he entitled to pay him back cheap wheat? He should give him the same $2. What do you mean he had committed to the value, the $2? He can't just give him cheap wheat. Means like this. Of course, if he did katzatz and he owes him the same amount, the same $2, whether there's a price increase or price decrease, that's not what the last part of the brisa was referring to. There are two parts to the brisa. If it's katzatz, of course, it's hinging on the value. But hachikam, the brisa meant imloy katzatz. Suppose he failed to peg it on its value. Rather, he borrowed wheat with the intention of returning wheat. So now, you have to be careful about ribas. Who's lu noitel chitav? So if there's a decrease, a drop in price, he repays in the same amount of wheat. That's not an issue, right? But if it goes up, if it rises in price, now you have to be careful. You can't just repay wheat, which is worth more. It's ribas. Rather, what do? You reckon how much this amount of wheat was worth at the time of that loan, and you give him that amount of money to avoid any ribas concerns. Okay, so let's just recap this last piece. You have an aris, and you're loaning him material for seeding. And the point, the basic point of the mission of the Gemara is if it's incorporated into the deal. So the deal sort of accounts for any possible additional loss to the aris on account of a rise in price of raw material when he actually pays back the material. So if it's incorporated into the deal, it's like he's willing to take a pay cut in his commission. That's okay. But otherwise, consider a separate loan, and that runs us into the concern of sa'abasa, raw material for raw material, which might be worth more at the time, a day of repayment. So that's a concern. Unless, as the Brisa says, you peg it on its value and you're careful to stick to that stationary amount. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rabbah.